Coming in at $200, the Thrustmaster T150 and TMX are the cheapest force feedback wheels in the market today, and they have been ever since the release a few years back in 2017. But more than 4 years later, are they any good, and are they still worth the $200 they retail for? Let's find out. Before we get started, it's important to recognize the differences between the T150, the TMX, and the Pro versions of these wheels. If you already know the difference, feel free to skip to the actual review, which starts at this time. So let me clear this up real quick. The Thrustmaster T150, which is the one I currently have, works with PlayStation and PC, and comes with the wheel and these set of pedals. The TMX on the other hand looks like this. As you can see, from a design perspective, it looks slightly different. This one works with Xbox and PC, and it too comes with the wheel and the same set of pedals. The most important thing to note is that the T150 and the TMX, despite their differences in design and console compatibility, feature the exact same internal mechanisms, and thus they perform the same on track. So even though I currently only have the T150, pretty much everything I say about it will also apply to the TMX. Also, I should note that for some reason the T150 is also commonly referred to as the T150 RS, but from my understanding it's the exact same thing, and I'm not really sure what the RS stands for or anything like that. As many of you may or may not know, Thrustmaster also offers the TMX Pro and the T150 Pro for $250. So what's the difference between the Pro models and the regular ones? Other than the $50 price difference, the pedals are the only difference between them. The TMX and the T150 are bundled with the 3-pedal Thrustmaster T3PA pedal set, whose pedals and internal structure are all 100% metal according to them. However, the wheels themselves and their performance are exactly the same, and they all work with their respective next-gen consoles. Okay, hopefully that cleared everything up, and now that we got that out of the way, we can get started. The wheel itself is nothing too glamorous, and at this price point I didn't really expect it to be either. It's made almost entirely of plastic and features some very generic buttons on the faceplate, which are pretty much like the ones you would find on an Xbox controller, for example. It's a relatively small wheel at only 11 inches or 28 centimeters in diameter, which I believe is a tad larger than Logitech's offerings, and can rotate from 270 up to 1080 degrees, which is impressive for a wheel this price. The paddle shifters are actually pretty impressive, and they're actually the same ones that come with my much higher end Thrustmaster wheel rim, which alone retails for about the cost of this entire set. These paddle shifters are made out of brushed metal and have a nice click to them. Take a listen. The sides of the wheel rim are covered in this textured blue rubber grip, which feels fine and is relatively grippy on the hand, although I do wish the rubber was slightly thicker, as it currently leaves me wishing for more. Unfortunately, the T150 and TMX do not come with a quick release mechanism, and thus it's not possible to interchange wheel rims unless you completely take it apart and modify it yourself, which I won't get into. Taking a look at the wheelbase, there's nothing too notable as it's made entirely of plastic and looks as you would imagine. Behind it is where everything plugs in. Here you can plug in compatible Thrustmaster pedals such as the TLCMs. You can also plug in a compatible Thrustmaster shifter such as the TH8A if you so desire, although that alone costs almost as much as this whole thing, so I don't reckon many people will be using it with this wheel. Underneath it you see where the table clamp fits in. This plastic table clamp comes included and will allow you to attach this wheel to any flat surface. It's nothing too crazy, but from my experience it does the job well and maintains the wheel firmly in place as long as you're not yanking it into the abyss. For whatever reason, the wheel doesn't come with any mounting holes to properly attach it to a cockpit or wheel stand, and thus you're forced to use the table clamp. Thankfully, my cockpit has a large center plate which allows me to attach the table clamp, but if yours doesn't, it's definitely something to keep in mind. The interesting part is that the included pedals do come with mounting holes, so I don't really understand what Thrustmaster was thinking when they decided to not include any on the wheel. Anyway, talking about the pedals, unfortunately, simply put, they're really bad. They're made entirely of plastic, are very small, and the gas and brake pedal are incredibly close to each other. Moreover, the brake pedal has little to no resistance, making it almost impossible to trail brake and become consistent with. The gas pedal is what you would expect as you simply push it down and go, and it has really nothing going for it. I also recommend using these pedals with shoes, as I found their plastic faceplates to be incredibly slippery when using them with socks. Oddly enough, however, after spending many hours with them, I slowly adjusted and I was able to do some decent laps. Granted, it was incredibly hard to do so, but I guess that you could to an extent become really good with them, so I'll give them that. Ultimately though, the included pedals seriously hindered the experience of the T150 and TMX, which is why I'd recommend spending $50 more for the T3PA pedals that come with the Pro versions. Although I've never used those before, I can guarantee they'll be miles better than this one. Now in terms of the part that actually matters, how does the wheel itself perform in game? Well, as soon as I plugged it in, downloaded the drivers, and set everything up, I was slightly disappointed as the force feedback didn't seem as significant as I had expected. Turns out, on its default settings, the force feedback was only set at 75%, so after I went into the driver settings and turned that up to the max, then went back in game and turned the feedback settings all the way up, it actually felt pretty good. I clearly felt how the car was behaving and I was able to catch slides and remain in control. The wheel itself uses a mixed belt, pulley, and gear force feedback mechanism, but it's not as silent as I was expecting it to be. Here's what it sounds like with its force feedback set to the max. Moving on, there are a few concerns, or at least negatives, that I did notice. For starters, I felt the game I was playing heavily impacted the T150's performance. On games like Dirt Rally 2 and Assetto Corsa, the feedback felt quick and responsive, and the overall force of the feedback was impressive. On Assetto Corsa Competizione, however, the wheel felt a lot lighter and not as much detail was felt regardless of how much I played around with it in the settings. Granted, this could be more of the game's fault, as some games just may not be as well optimized for certain wheels, but it's something that I did definitely notice. The second thing I'm concerned about is this wheel's long-term reliability. For starters, a few weeks ago I saw a video of someone's T150 catching on fire, and while that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen to everyone, it's something that will sort of always linger in the back of your mind. Moreover, I wonder if the wheel purposefully comes with its force feedback settings set at 75%. Is Thrustmaster worried about this wheel overheating or its internal components wearing out after heavy use? Perhaps, maybe not, I don't know, but it's something to keep in mind nonetheless. Regardless, from the many hours I spent using it across many sims, I seriously did enjoy the T150. Now it would have probably been equally as fast as I usually am if it weren't for the pedals. So, is the Thrustmaster T150 still worth it in 2021? Yes, although I'd highly recommend saving up a little bit more and going with the Pro version, which comes with some decent pedals. Now, I know what some of you are wondering. At this price point, is it better than the Logitech G29 and G920? You're going to have to wait for the comparison I'm going to make of them coming out in a future video. Come on, do y'all understand how hard it is to come up with video ideas? In conclusion, at $200, the Thrustmaster T150 and TMX would not give you the prettiest of wheels nor the nicest of build quality, but rest assured that the force feedback of this wheel will allow you to remain competitive on track. Ultimately, this is a beginner's wheel designed and marketed towards consumers on a tight budget and urging to get into sim racing, and at that, it does a great job. Again though, seriously consider the Pro versions, as I can almost guarantee that these pedals will disappoint you. In all my reviews, I try to remain as honest and transparent to you, the viewers and potential buyers of these products, so please let me know how you think I did in the comments below, or if you're too lazy to type out your thoughts, feel free to press the like or the dislike button down below, as it helps YouTube promote this video to more people. Finally, if you're into all types of sim racing content, consider subscribing, as I'm trying to reach 10k by the end of the year. But with all that being said, thank you all for watching, stay safe, and have a fantastic rest of your day.